Hi Michelle, I hope you can hear me. It never fails every time I try to make a video tutorial, the landscapers are here. So what I wanted to show you is how to create a fluency activity within Schoology. So right now I'm looking at a sample course that I have and I'm logged in as a student because I want you to see what this activity would potentially look like on the end of your students, and then I'll show you how to build it. It's very simple to do. So I have a folder down here that I had created just to do some practice with this, and I called it Fluency Practice 1. Basically, the type of activity or material this is in Schoology is called an assessment. Even though you're not really counting this as an assessment per se, this is a one-question assessment because there is an assessment question type called audio, which allows the students to record their answer to whatever the quote-unquote question is. So I had set this assessment up so that the students could do it 2 times if they wanted. By default, it's 1. You can change that if you want. You can see here I kind of had already started, which is why I have this option down here. The students normally wouldn't see this if they hadn't started the attempt. They would just click Start Attempt. I'm going to click Resume. And this is going to bring me to, again, this one-question assessment. So when you're on the teacher end of this, you're going to get a text box where you can put instructions, and you literally can just copy and paste the text that in there that you want them to read. You can insert like an image or a screenshot of text, but I found it to be just as simple to copy and paste the text. You can see here, this is the box where the students would work to actually create their recording and read back. The only downfall I could potentially see is if you gave them a much longer reading passage. If the reading passage was longer than, let's say, where my mouse is right now, that means the recording box is going to be very low, and for them to be able to see and click record at the same time, they're going to have to do a little bit of quick scrolling around. There is an option to go full screen, which will make this a little bit bigger so that if there was some scrolling needed, hopefully they can still see the recording box on here. That being said, all they need to do after reading the instructions, doing whatever you want them to do to actually start recording, they're going to hit this button, Start Recording. Occasionally they will get a button down here that says, do you want that to allow them to use the microphone? They have to click yes on this or it's not going to work. You can see here it's not actually recording yet. Now it's recording, so you can see this is moving. And they read, Dr. Peter is the doctor to see if you are not feeling well. He gives you butter popcorn. His door has a picture of a dinosaur, and he doesn't make you fill out a questionnaire. Nailed it. So once they're done, they can either pause it or they can stop it. They can play it back. It works pretty seamless, and it's pretty clear depending on the device that they're using, but it's pretty clear. If they did need to record, this I believe would continue on from where they were. I don't know if it would record it over again. I'm actually just going to, yeah, so it will replace it. If they were not happy with it, they could replace it before they submit it. I'm not going to do that. Then when the students are done, they have to click Review, and then they would click Finish, and then this would get submitted. Got to confirm it 100 times, and then on your end, you would be able to look back at it and you would be able to listen to it. So I do have another attempt here. Now I'm going to jump on over to the teacher view of this just so you can see how to create it. It's pretty simple. So I'm just going to continue and add another fluency activity to this folder. So I'm going to open up that folder. I'm going to get my green dotted line so I can add this next activity directly underneath the other one, and you're going to be adding an assessment. Again, even though it's not really an assessment. You do have to put in some basic information here, so I'm just going to put in Fluency Activity 2. You can put a due date in here. This would put it on their reminder list, so I would suggest doing it even if it's not that important to you. Point value, you can put on here if you want. You're not syncing to PowerSchool or anything like that, so it doesn't really matter. This part's important. By default, they would not be able to actually participate in this activity until you actually enable it. By default, it is off, so make sure that you hit Enable. You do have to choose a category, so if you haven't created categories, you can leave it as ungraded, or you can create a category. I'm just going to count this one as homework. Sync to SIS really has no bearing on you or me because you're not syncing to PowerSchool, but I'll uncheck it anyway. And then I click Create. So this is going to bring me to now the setup of, again, this is an assessment. So they're looking, as if you were actually creating a full assessment, which we're not. So where it says instructions here, you don't have to put anything because you're going to put specific instructions on the question itself. All of this other stuff you really don't have to mess with unless you want to give them the ability to like highlight text or anything like that. The only thing you want to take a look at right now, it says number of attempts students can submit. By default, it's always on 1. So if you want them to be able to do it more than once and submit it more than once, you can change that to as many times as you want. Allow students to view results after an attempt is submitted. You know, if this was more of like a multiple choice with right or wrong answers, that would be something maybe you want to change, but in what you're doing, it probably doesn't really matter. So if you do make any changes to this, you'll hit save, and then you're going to come back up and you're going to go over to questions. So questions now is how you're going to add the question type, the audio question type, so that the students can actually do this fluency activity. The question type you're going to insert is called audio. Not a lot of setup here. If you have the text that you want to put in here already, it's very simple. So question setup, put your instructions here on whatever it is you want them to do, and then you could literally copy and paste text directly in here that you want them to read. So for example, this is where I got mine from before. I could just literally drag and take, I could take all of this text, copy it, come back over, and I could paste it in here. Now, depending on how the document is formatted, it might not come in the way you exactly want it, because that one was in sort of a little box of its own, so you might have to do some finagling if you do some copy and pasting. If it does come out like that, I would suggest it so that, again, the students don't have to do any scrolling in order to do their recording. And then the maximum length, 600 seconds, so they have 10 minutes. You can adjust that if you want, but this is the default. If you want to see what this looks like beforehand, you can hit preview question, so you can actually see what the text is going to look like. You're going to see the box that they're going to have available to them to do this recording. I'm going to go back over to edit question. When you're in this text box, if you did want to insert anything else, such as an image, if you were snipping an image of text, you could put it in that way. Again, you're going to have to really preview it to make sure the students aren't going to have to scroll, but you have some formatting options here as well. You could also enlarge the text or make it smaller if you needed to. If you're happy with it, all you need to do is hit save. Now it's saved. It's a one-question assessment. I mean, if you wanted to add other fluency activities to this same assessment, you could, but it could be just a one question. If you want to preview the entire thing as to what it's going to look like from the student standpoint, you can click preview. And remember, when we were on the student side of this, this is what it looked like. They click start new attempt. They have their recording button over here. They click record. I'm on Chrome right now, so it didn't ask me for permission to use my mic, but Edge seems to, so they're just going to have to pay attention to that. So it's doing my recording. I hit stop. I hit play. I'm on Chrome right now. It plays it back. If I need to redo it, I can record and I can replace what I'm doing. To get out of preview mode, I can close this X over here, and that's really it. That's all you have to do. So once this activity is done, oh, by the way, we had assigned this a 5-point value. It assigns everything 1 point by default. So if you were counting this for something, you could change that. But again, not as important. So this activity, this assessment is pretty much done. So I'm going to come back over here. This is where I can get back to the home page of my course. And again, I had put it in this folder. So there's my activity. So if you're not ready for the students to have access to it yet, but you want to create it, you could unpublish it just so it's not viewable to the students, and then you could publish it when you're ready. So I hope that this works for you. I think it's actually a pretty good way to do this type of activity. Again, just the length of the text might be the issue. Let me know if you have any questions.